guys, welcome back to my channel. It is story time. I know I've been talking about story times for the absolute longest, so I finally give you a story. So this is the time where I almost got told. Like I said in my first video, I'm not too fond of New Jersey, but I'm growing to like New Jersey. So I don't like to do a whole bunch of talking, so let's get straight to the story. Okay, this is like when I first started driving, probably like in my first month. It was kind of like, it was still cold, so it was like winter time. I finally found a place to stop, and it was like at one of the travel centers or service plazas on the New Jersey Turnpike. I'm trying to go to bed, so I was like, let me take Bentley out, which is my dog. Let me take Bentley out for, you know, for the last time that night. And usually I have like my little key clipped on me or whatever, and this was in my first truck. So my first truck, if you lock the doors, it just stay locked. My new truck now is like, if I lock the doors and then close the door, it'll be unlocked, so I won't lock myself out. So anyway, I'll end up locking myself out. I get out there, I done took him out, I go back to the truck, and I'm like, where's my keys? Left my key in there. So good thing I had my cell phone with me. I call my company and I'm like, hey, I locked myself out. Or like I call like the roadside. I'm like, I locked myself out. Like, you know, what can I do? What can I do? Or can you send somebody out here? So she's like, well, do you have like a spare key on the outside of your truck or inside or wherever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, everything is inside my truck. Good thing I had my cell phone. So she says, okay, there's nothing that we can do. If you're on the turnpike, you have to call like the, you know, like the traffic people or the turnpike, whatever. So the basically is like DOT for the turnpike. So I'm like, okay, cool, let me call them. So I called them and nobody answers. So I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a little chilly out here. I'm sitting outside my truck, like I don't know what to do. So they sent me to another department. I go to the department for, like, I guess they call it an emergency. And so I left a message, and actually the guy called me back like in 2 minutes, and I was like, okay, woo, good. So he talks, he said, okay, what I can do is I can get a tow truck to come out there and unlock you. Boom, no biggie. So I'm like, all right. He said, I don't know how long he said it would take, but he was like, I'll try to get somebody as soon as possible. And so I'm like, well, I'm gonna just walk around. So I was like, I'm gonna just walk around outside to like keep warm or whatever until he get there. So I was on the phone with my husband, and like all of a sudden I see like the towing lights, and I'm like, dang, they got here quick. They got there in like 15 minutes. And the guy comes over, he's like, oh, so you locked yourself out? And I'm like, yeah, you know, I try to remember to, you know, get my key, whatever. I just didn't do it. So he's like, well, I got this new like door unlocking kit, like, so you're gonna have to bear with me. They said it's pretty easy, but I've never used it before. So he's like sticking the little like airbag thingy in there and like pumping it and seeing if he can get the little jimmy thing inside of it. So that wasn't working. So I don't know if he didn't, whatever. So he was like, well, let me try the other side. He tried the other side, that wasn't working. He was like, well, I'm just have to do it old school. So he ended up, you know, like getting it unlocked. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like, thank you so much. You know, like it was like really quick. And I get back in there. So I'm like, so, you know, like, what do I need to do as far as you getting paid? I'm like, I know my company's supposed to be paying you. Like, what, you know, like, what do I need to do? So, I was like, cause I know I have my data card, my com data card. Like, do you want to just go ahead and take that? I can, you know, whatever. So he's like, no, we don't do like com data cards. You have to do it through a com data check. Now, mind you, I don't know nothing about com data checks at all. So I'm calling my company. They're like getting in contact with them, and he's like, well, I have a com data check number. He's like, do you have checks on you? And I'm like, no, I don't have checks on me. So my company ended up putting the money on my com data card. So I talked to him, and he's like, yeah, you're gonna have to put it on a check. He said, but I have my own check number. So he gave me his check number. I called ComData. Tell ComData to transfer this money onto this check, okay? So after that, I'm thinking, boom, we good to go. So he goes back in his truck. I get back in the truck. I'm getting ready for bed. you know, talking to my husband. He knocks on the door. Excuse me, do you have like a accommodator code or something code for it? And I'm like, no, I don't know what that is or whatever. I have no idea. So I have to call my company again. I'm like, he's asking for this particular number. I have no idea what number it is. And she said, oh, that number is your card number. So I tell him, I'm like, hey, they say it's my card number. He's like, no, it's not the card number. It's not the card number. It's a such number and y'all supposed to have it. She's like, no, actually, like, they supposed to have it or something like that. And so I was like, well, I don't know. She was like, well, it's supposed to be your card number. I said, well, do you just want to take my card number just in case that's the number for it? No, that's not it. That's not what we're looking for. We need a different number. So I was like, all right. So they was like, well, we're going to let our dispatchers, you know, like, take care of it. So I'm like, cool. So I go back. So I'm like, you know, come back in the truck or whatever, chilling. And here he go again. He knocking. He's like, well, we ain't got the money. So, you know, like, do you have that number? So I give him the number, because I'm like, now I'll give him he's like, let me try the card number, because we've been trying to cash it and it's not working. I'm like, okay, cool. So I give him my card number. He's like, that's not working. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I'm looking on my account, like, the money's there, the money's on the check. I don't know what's going on. So come to find out, like, the girl that was handling it on my side was talking to his dispatcher. So the dispatcher on their side was, like, being rude and, like, cussing her out or whatever. So I'm in the truck chilling. I'm thinking everything done, but I still see him waiting. So there's, you know, I was like, so I think he came back again, and I was just like, well, you know, I was like, I don't know. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know. That's between them. So I guess they kept going back and forth for a little while. And he was like, well, don't worry about it. I'm gonna talk to my girl and we'll see if we can get it done. I'm like, cool. So by this time, they still waiting. I mean, like, I think I got locked out probably around 6 or 7. By this time, it's like now probably like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, right? So by this time, I'm like, yo, I'm tired. Like, and this man's still sitting out here. I don't know what's going on, what's handling, whatever. So I'm like, well, while he out there waiting for whatever for his payment, I'm about to go to sleep. I've been driving all day long for like 10 hours. And plus, I done got locked out. I've been out here. I've been up. I need to go to sleep so I can drive in the morning. So I'm sitting here, like, laying in the bed. I'm, like, dozing off. All of a sudden, I hear, like, do. So I'm like, I know this ain't this man again, right? No. This man done called the police on me. So the officer is out there. And he's like, hey, how are you? He was like, now, what's the problem? And I'm like, it shouldn't be no problem. He was like, he's saying that he's not being paid for his service. And I said, sir, I'm just a driver. Whatever he's not getting done, that's between my company and him. I just drive. I said, he did his job. I said, but I personally don't have the money to be giving him. I said, I did what I was supposed to do by putting the money on the check and whatever. He's like, well, the man is saying the check is not going through. I'm like, that's not my problem. You need to contact Swift and this towing company needs to get that together. I just drive. I don't have nothing to do with that. So like, now I'm getting kind of ticked off, because I'm like, I thought me and the dude was cool, because he was like, nah, I'm still getting paid. Like, I can wait here all night. I'm still getting paid, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But now you upset. I mean, so basically, like, the officer is, like, relaying lessons between me and the tow truck guy. So I was like, well, bunk that. Like, I'll just go talk to old boy. So I go and talk to him. I'm like, you know, like, what's going on? He's like, yeah, like, the check ain't going through, and if I don't get no payment, I'm gonna have to tow your truck. Like, you know, because it's basically gonna be non-payment. I need to be paid for my service. And I was like, well, why are you gonna tow my truck? Like, I didn't do anything, so, like, why are you trying to tow my truck? He was like, well, you need to call them and tell them that the check's not going through, and if they don't pay us, we're gonna have to tow the truck. So I called my company back. I called the girl that was handling my situation, and so she was like, oh, they said they're gonna tow the truck. And so she was like, what? She's like, I've been having issues with them. She was like, I've been trying to talk to them. I was trying to explain to them that the card number was the confirmation number, whatever, for them to get their money. She was like, they were like rude and cussing at me and stuff. And she said, you know, like I try to be helpful. She said, so yeah, I did. I hung up on them. She was like, they were disrespecting me. I hung up on them. So I go back, and so he's like, so I go back to the truck, and so he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, here, just talk to him, because, you know, like, I don't know what's going on. They talking about, you know, towing my truck. So he's like, if we don't get our payment, she's like, sir, like, I've already talked to your dispatch. I told them the same thing. This is what we did. We already sent the money. I'm sorry you can't get it, but we've already done our part. Like, we've already sent the money. We've already done our part. Now this, you know, this issue is y'all getting y'all money. So he was like, well, since we ain't got our money, we're gonna have to tow the truck. So she said, okay, well, tow the truck. So I'm like, okay. So I get back in the truck. I'm on the phone with her. So she's like, call your driver leader, let them know that they're gonna tow your truck. They'll give you accommodations, you know, like sleeping in a hotel or whatever, and then they'll, you know, figure it out in the morning. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I get back in my truck, call my DL. So she's like, yeah, call this person, let them know whatever's going on. They'll get you a hotel and blah blah blah. So I'm like, well, dang, like, I'm like, now I gotta pack a bag, now I gotta get the stuff that I need, I gotta get meds, I gotta get all this stuff. So mind you, the whole time the police still out there. So homeboy comes back and knocks on my door and is like, what was the number again? I need to try it. So they tried it and it didn't work. So then he says, so homeboy comes back to my door and he's like, they canceled the check. And I was like, what you mean? And he was like, they canceled the check. So oh no, this issue is y'all getting y'all money. So he was like, well, since we ain't got our money, we're gonna have to tow the truck. So she said, okay, well, tow the truck. So I'm like, okay. So I get back in the truck. I'm on the phone with her. So she's like, call your driver leader, let them know that they're gonna tow your truck. They'll give you accommodations, you know, like sleeping in a hotel or whatever, and then they'll, you know, figure it out in the morning. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I get back in my truck, call my DL, and so she's like, yeah, call this person, let them know whatever's going on. They'll get you a hotel and blah blah blah. So I'm like, well, dang, like, I'm like, now I gotta pack a bag, now I gotta get the stuff that I need, I gotta get meds, I gotta get all this stuff. So homeboy comes back to my door and he's like, they canceled the check. And I was like, what you mean? And he was like, they canceled the check. Okay, so like I said, the girl's basically saying, like, if they gonna tow the truck, it ain't no need for us to be paying. So she canceled the check. So he comes, and so I'm like trying to get accommodations and stuff. So he comes back and he's like, well, do you just have a because I'm missing out on money or whatever, do you just have a personal card that you can use? And I'm like, no. I said, my company said they're gonna pay you and they're gonna pay you. So he's like, well, can you call them back and see what they can do? So I called them back. They end up putting the money on my card. And then he was like, well, I have to like call it in or whatever. So I had to give him my card. My company put the money on my card. I gave him my card number to do whatever. And it got paid. And then he left. So I literally stayed up for another like 6 hours when I was supposed to be asleep. And I literally need to get up around like 4 or 5 o'clock the next morning. So I ain't go to bed until like 12:30. All because if he would have did it the correct way and took my card in the first place, we wouldn't have had to sit there for 5 to 6 hours. So, but good thing I didn't get towed and I didn't have to be homeless out. Well, I didn't have to be in a hotel, which would have been nice because I was missing home and just sleeping like a real good bed and a good shower and chill. But, you know, but that's the time. I almost got towed. I will do another story time about my other incidents in New Jersey, but that was definitely one for the birds. Like I just couldn't understand it. And I'm like, all of this could have been solved probably around 8 o'clock, but because people are being so rude and not listening, because basically what we told him the first time is what he was supposed to do, and because they thought they knew what they was doing, we end up wasting everybody's time. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you for listening to my story time. There'll definitely be more coming. Like I said, if you have any ideas or topics or anything you want to know, any questions, you can hit me up. And please like and subscribe, because I'm on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. And I appreciate you. And I will see you guys later.